Welcome to the Competitive 40K podcast, brought to you by Vanguard Tactics, 40K Codex Analysis, list building, strategy development, game theory, mentoring. Our mission, to help you become a better player and to raise the level of the game both on and off the tabletop. Here's your host, Stephen Box.
Hey guys, and welcome to Vanguard Tactics. This is episode number 15, and I'm your host, Stephen Box. And today I'm joined with Jack. How you doing, Jack?
Stephen, I'm all good. Thank you for having me back again.
Mate, you don't need to say that anymore, mate. You're just here, okay?
Part of the furniture.
That's it, mate. You're part of the furniture. So we've got a very exciting podcast lined up for you today. And if you're listening to it, you probably already know what this show is going to be all about. I'm extremely excited to talk about it. And that is, we're going to be discussing all things Blood Angels. Yeah, I can't wait to get diving into this episode, really, because obviously the book's just come out, hasn't it, Jack?
Yeah, the book came out as on pre-order last week, wasn't it, for a full release for this Saturday, as of date of recording. And they were very good in 8th edition. I liked the rule set that they had, and it'd be interesting to explore this new supplement with you and discuss it and see where we think they lie between 8th edition and 9th edition.
Yeah, absolutely. And also we have, just as a kind of quick announcement, so depending on when you're listening to this, but you may be able to get a recording of it, I am hosting a Blood Angels masterclass on Sunday, the 6th of December at 2 p.m. And we're going to be covering, or I'm going to be covering, a whole host of different topics. I'm going to be looking at some of the strengths and weaknesses with the Blood Angels, and then also how you start to construct an army and a game-winning strategy for the Blood Angels. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail into actually how you play the Blood Angels, and also potentially some faults or problems where it might suffer in, if you are going up against Blood Angels, some things to kind of look out for. But that's going to be, completely free. And if you want access to that masterclass, all you need to do is head over to the blog page, which is www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/S2EP15. And you can sign up for that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but the masterclass is definitely building on top of the content that we're covering today, aren't we? We're going to give a broad overview of what's in the supplement, but that masterclass is when you'll start digging into a bit more details, and as you kind of described there.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's it. This is kind of your overview, like we've done with the Space Wolves and the Death Watch, covering some key aspects that you need to know about. But I'm going to be looking at, how do those things kind of interact on the table. And then over on the Academy, I'm going to take that to another stage, showing you exactly how to start deploying the Blood Angel list, how to go up against every single other faction. I've made a cheat sheet for the guys on the Academy so that you know pertinent questions that you need to ask your opponent if you're a Blood Angel player. And obviously there's those things in each army that could potentially be a bit of a thorn in the side for the Blood Angels. So I've done a full analysis of that. So it's going to be free masterclass, about an hour and a half. I'll take some questions at the end, and then we're going to move over to more content over on the Academy. And if you want to sign up for that, we've got a 7-day trial at the moment for $2.99. All part of the Black Friday kind of Cyber Monday Blood Angel special. So you can check that out as well, and all sort of access to that is on the blog page. The other thing as well is we're going to have a stream game of the Blood Angels straight after the masterclass. So if you want to see the Blood Angels in action, I'm going to be going up against Joe. I don't know what army he's bringing against me yet, but it's going to be something, and that'll be over on the YouTube channel of Vanguard Tactics. So you can check out the stream as well, yeah.
So that's kind of introducing what we're doing today, but we got a bit of housekeeping, haven't we, from our last podcast for the Space Wolves, because someone made a couple of errors, didn't they?
That I did. I
think we need an apology to the listeners on this one, and if you'd like to correct your mistakes, Mr. Box, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, and so I'll tell you what, I'm going to put my hand up and say, look, it was my mistake on this one. I said Savage Echoes, and I should have been saying Savage Fury. And I apologise to all the Space Wolf players out there, but I was just a sheep in a wolf's clothing, or a wolf in sheep's clothing, maybe. Whatever the
maybe a vampire in a sheep's clothing, I think is more appropriate.
I just had Savage Echoes on the brain, but you know what I meant. The other thing as well, I clearly couldn't even read the word unmodified 5s in one of the stratagem, where I thought, they might get a +1 to get exploding 4s. They don't. It's unmodified 5 pluses. So again, we spoke about that, and I was looking at the stratagem, and I just couldn't see the word, so apologies about that. And also, if we didn't make it clear, deeds are unlocked at the end of the phase, not the turn. So slight little change there. So if we do get anything wrong, we'll use the podcast the week after to do any housekeepings. Like at the end of the day, like myself, in UJack, we get like a week, right, to kind of dive as deep as we possibly can, make our notes, and we're trying to remember the rules for every single faction. So if we do get something wrong, please give us a little bit of a polite nudge on the YouTube or whatever. Hey, you might have just got this wrong. And there's different ways to interpret things as well. So some people have said, oh, no, that's not how this works. But that's one interpretation. And the great thing is by about putting these podcasts out, if Games Workshop listen, they'll be like, oh, that clearly needs FAQing if it's been interpreted not in a way that we're intending it. So this does have some power in a way that can hopefully influence FAQs and things like that. So interpretations we probably won't cover necessarily unless it's really important that we do. But anyway, we will use the show to keep you up to date on everything. So anyway, let's move on. We don't want to talk about Space Wolves.
No, done them to death. Let's get on to the boys in red, the boys in gold. So it's a question for you, Steve. So why are the Blood Angels so special to you?
So obviously, go on, what you can say.
I said that they have a key place in your heart. I've felt the wrath of them in the playtesting and on the tournament scene. So I know full well how you like them and how you play them on the tabletop, and you are great to play against and watch to play with the Blood Angels as well. So I'm interested to understand why they stand out to you so much.
Yeah, I think the Blood Angels for me are an army in which really highlights me as a player. If there was a play style that I thought, yeah, that's me, it is definitely the Blood Angels. From an aesthetic point of view, I used to be a professional bodybuilder, so when you've got Sanguinary Guard looking like the way that they do, it just, you've got that sort of symmetry there that I was trying my hardest to try and achieve myself. So when I can just paint them gold and put a wash on, I'm like, these are the ones for me. So they've got a certain aesthetic appeal that I like. The play style is incredible. And I took them to the LVO. I was going to take Eldar at the time. This was back in literally a year ago. We were going through all the play testing. I was like, I've got a good Eldar list. We were playing that. And then I just threw Blood Angels on the table, didn't I? It's a bit of a joke because of Psychic Awakening. And I was like, no, okay, these guys have got play. And took them to the LVO. Didn't quite get the result I wanted. In reflection, I should have been hotter on my game. There was a few mistakes I'd made. Come back from that, certainly learnt from my mistakes. And I really felt like I got my teeth stuck into the Blood Angels after that. And just sort of really enjoyed them ever since, really.
Okay, no, cool. And you say you took them to the LVO, but I know you've gone to quite a few tournaments, had some very good success with these boys, haven't you? So give us a bit of a background on your results with the Blood Angels.
Yeah, so the first one after the LVO was Beachhead, which was a 100-man 6-event GT down in Bournemouth. That was actually put on by Foreground and Entoyment, our sponsors of the show. So thank you very much for those guys. And I went 5-1, losing to Vic Vijay, who's a great player, who actually went on to win the tournament, and he was running the Iron Hands like...
The same list of one LVO, wasn't it? That's when the Iron Hands were causing absolute mayhem at their peak.
Yeah, and Vic played a great game and deserved the victory. So, but that put me, I think, at 5th place, which scored me some really big ITC points going 5-1 at, a 100-man event. I then went to Greetings from the Warp, another GT. And that's when I faced off against you and Jonesy.
Yeah, that was a good weekend, that one.
Yeah, pulled the win out of that one. Mine in your game was just an absolute nail biter, wasn't it?
It was absolutely quite. I think the games that I played against you and Ben were some of my favourite games of Warhammer ever played, I think.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. My last game in that tournament was the fastest game of 40k I've ever played. And I'm glad that they've actually changed the rules now so that you can't just table your opponent and the game's over. Because I was playing against a Grey Knight player, Ken, we've played before, super nice guy. And the Death Company just did what Death Company do best and got rid of half of his Grey Knights that were on the table, and the rest in reserve just didn't have time to come down. So it was a very quick ending, unfortunately, for the Grey Knights, but that was the strategy Ken went with and didn't, I think, appreciate how much damage the Death Company could do at the time. So then, what other events did I do? I did a Hampshire Hammer event, which was like 100, or I think like six, no, it wasn't 100. I think it was an 80-man RTT. Huge RTT it was.
Oh, yeah.
3 games, but because of how many people were there, I scored some really big points as I won that event. And then I did another event more recently, before the recent restrictions with COVID, and won that RTT as well. So they're my 4 results that have gone into the bank for me for being the ranking that I am of Blood Angels at the moment in the ITC ranking. So hopefully I can put an even better showing in the next season when obviously COVID starts to calm down a bit.
Absolutely. So just a bit of background on that, and it kind of shows that Blood Angels can play. They could compete with the best lists out there. So it's an interesting bit of feedback there. So I just want to cover a bit of the paperwork that you need to play the Blood Angels. So because of the revamp of the Space Marine Codex, you need the core Space Marine Codex because Blood Angels get full access to everything within there, units, stratagems, warlord traits, etc. You need your Blood Angels Codex Supplement as well, which is the new book coming out this Saturday. And if you fancied any Forge World units, there's the Imperial Armor Compendium. I think I got Compendium right. So those are the 3 books that you may need. You certainly need the first 2 with the Space Marine Codex and the Blood Angels Supplement.
Yep.
So we've got our books in our hands. So why play Blood Angels?
Yeah, so I think if we're going to look at them as a unique faction, what makes them unique, and it's their chapter tactic is called the Red Thirst. And their Red Thirst gives you 2 abilities. One of them is +1 to your advance and charge rolls, which is fantastic, making those 8-inch charges from Deep Strike, which is nice. And also the +1 advance really comes in handy as well for what is a speed and mobility based army. And then also the biggest one is +1 to wound in combat when you are charging or charged or heroically intervened, basically. So very, very strong combat-based ability. So your first ability is all about movement, and then also the second one there is all about, combat. And then their super doctrine is Savage Echoes, guys, the actual Savage Echoes. And basically, when you get to the Assault Doctrine, you get to get an additional attack, which is amazing on your characteristic.
Yeah, so turn 3, these boys get very nasty. The +1 to wound is such an incredible ability in combat. Don't underestimate that ability. It's so good. It's probably the reason why you wouldn't even consider a successor chapter with these. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Flesh Tearers, which are a successor, which get Fury within, which is +1 to wound when charging. So they still get that, and they get an additional AP on a 6 in combat when you wound on a 6. But I think out of the 2, I'm going to take the +1 advance and +1 charge every single day of the week. Yeah,
I was referring to because you can now pick up successor traits from the Space Marine Codex, but then you'd start to lose the +1 to wound. The Flesh Tearers, I still think, if you had that, if you like the aesthetic of them, still have play because they keep that important part, the +1 to wound, and the extra AP on 6s could become useful. But I think that Blood Angels chapter tactic is so strong for additional movement to help you get your delivery into combat, and then that extra punch in combat. So it's a perfect combo.
Yeah, and also, some of this Blood Angel characters are so good. And the Blood Angel relics as well. So then you start to limit yourself which Blood Angel relics you can take. So for me, I'm never really, I do prefer a normal regular chapter rather than the successor, but I see why they're there, and each to their own, and there's some cool combos. But for me, Blood Angels, you paint them red, gold and black, and that's how you roll. So then I suppose we should move on to what else the Blood Angels get, right, from this new book.
Yeah, so they get lots of new Relic Stratagems. They got access to some additional secondaries. They've got their Psychic Discipline, Warlord Traits, which we'll cover in a bit more detail in a minute. But the Black Range has it's a slight tweak, hasn't it, on how that operates on the table, and it's made it more fitting with 9th edition.
Yeah, so Black Rage used to be just +1 attack on the charge and also 6+ feel no pain. That's remained, but now there's a con to it, and basically any unit with the Black Rage cannot fall back, and it cannot do an action. So, which is a bit more fitting with the lore as well, with the Death Company. They just want to run forward and absolutely smash things. There are some new cool upgrade things called Death Visions, which characters can take, and they basically get an ability that they can pick one of three, which are cool, and I think if you're having a narrative game, they're good, but I think they're too situational to rely on it a competitive way, so we probably won't cover that in this episode. I mean, we could talk about Blood Angels all day with all the different interactions, but I just don't feel like they are the competitive way forward, because you can't give them Warlord traits and things, so you start to inhibit yourself a little bit, just for kind of what could be a situational. Like there's one of them which is you and your opponent roll off, and if you win you do D3 plus 3 mortal wounds, which, you know, but you can't attack and stuff. It's again, I kind of read it briefly and I thought I'm probably not going to use that. Anything where there's a situation which may or may not go my way, I'm not going to really look at it, because I always want to play a consistent, repetitive play style.
Okay, cool. What access to what special units, and is there any limitations to what units Blood Angels can take from the Space Marine Codex?
Well, for this time, obviously, we had some interactions last time with the Space Wolves and Death Watch, but now Blood Angels get full access to everything in that Space Marine Codex. The slight change is that apothecaries for us are actually sanguinary priests, which are better anyway, so that's fantastic upgrade of an apothecary. The other thing as well is we also get the Blood Angel characters, which are incredible. Some of their rules are absolutely brilliant. We get the Sanguinary Guard, Sanguinary Ancients, we get the Death Company that I already mentioned, Death Company Dreadnoughts, Librarian Dreadnoughts, and also Baal Predators. So that's pretty much our unique access to different units that you're only going to find in this book, which they're just incredible. You can take this army in many different ways, and I really feel like there's some good level of play there. And if if you want to become a good Blood Angel player, you need to be able to master the sort of combat phase and the movement phase, and these units kind of really lean into those.
Yeah, I think what I like about the supplement, and to be fair, the idea kind of came through in Psychic Awakening. Those unique units, all the rules are kind of geared up to encourage you to take them, which for me is absolutely great. You almost must take Sanguinary Guard. You really want to get the Death Company in there because there's cool tricks and combos and stuff that you can use, which, for all of us eagerly awaiting your Codex or Codex Supplement, it's great to see. These are the units that you probably picked the chapter in the first place. So I'm glad that that's been supported with a solid set of rules to go behind it.
No, exactly. It's what makes, the Sanguinary Guard stand out to me. But, you could be looking at it and thinking, right, Death Company are great. Ironically, there was a lot of hate towards me taking Death Company in my last 9th edition list. Everyone's like, oh, they're rubbish. They die too quickly. They die to a stiff breeze or whatever. And, I didn't really feel that. I actually felt the Death Company were brilliant. And I still think they got real good now.
Every time I've played you, I've felt a lot more comfortable deploying when there's no Death Company on the board, which is one of their unique abilities, and it should not be underestimated in my opinion. That ability to come flying out the blocks on turn 1, especially not knowing who's going to go first these days as well, it can really manipulate your opponent's deployment, and I think it's for that reason alone, if I was running Blood Angels, I would always have a unit of Death Company to give me that option up my sleeve, and my opponent has to play against it.
Yeah, no, I think they're just incredible. Like, just a really good unit. I don't know what else I can say about them, really. And also they've got some huge buffs now in this book. The biggest one of all is that they've got an extra wound. So you're just your regular Death Company with jump packs, obviously. It's the only way to run Death Company, in my opinion, is with a jump pack. They've got great weapon options. They did lose how many models you can take, so you can only take up to 10 rather than 15. They can't take a bolt gun anymore. Not that that's a huge loss. But yeah, I think...
But the reduction of unit size is probably fair, because before it was 15 wounds total, but now it's 20 wounds across 10 models. So if you had the 15 models, 30 wounds come flying into your face, I think I think that's a good trade-off. I think the 2 wound Death Company is probably more resilient in numbers of 10 than the 1 wound 15-man block.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And, there's one of the stratagems, which we'll talk about later, just makes these guys brilliant. So, Death Company,
Cool.
Certainly a great option. And we can talk about some of the other, things that we can buff them and get leverage out of them. But you're right, like there's so many unique aspects here. You just go through the list of characters. You've got Commander Dante, who everyone said, oh no, he's no good. And I've been trying to find for ages a reason to take Dante, and he's in my list. He's an absolute, for me, he's an auto-include now. You've got the Sanguinary, who I used to, have in every single list, and it's got some great rules. He's got one of the most interesting rules, I think, out there. He is able to not only charge when he fell back, but he can also perform a heroic intervention 6 inches, and he's got something called the Miraculous Saver at the end of the heroic intervention step of your opponent's charge phase. If this model has not been set up on the battlefield, and if any units finish a charge move with an engagement range of any friendly Blood Angel units this phase, you can set up this model in engagement range of one of those enemy units, and it counts as performing a heroic intervention. So he can basically heroically intervene from Deep Strike.
Incredible. Love it.
And it doesn't say, that could be turn 1 by the way this is written. So, absolutely brilliant.
I think that particular thing's out for debate on the turn 1 thing. It'll need FAQ, but I think there's discussion about, because he's set up in reinforcements and there's no other workaround to break the coming in on turn 1 for reinforcements, that he might not be able to do it. But it could easily be one or two interpretations there. So let's let GW hopefully get an FAQ out on that, just to clean that up a little bit, so we know exactly what we're dealing with.
Yeah, no, I think that's, you're absolutely right there. Same with the Incarn, isn't it, really? It's got a similar sort of ability. When someone dies, it obviously appears. But yeah, I'd be good to... So, I mean, that is a fantastic unit. You've got, I could go into like really detail, and I will on the masterclass, why I'm picking every single aspect I am in the list. But Brother Corbolo, if you can get him up the field, he's excellent. He basically puts... literally, your whole army into Assault Doctrine. So, that's incredible.
Cool, yeah. There's lots of good and scary stuff in there, which I'm sure you'll break down the pros and cons about, and who makes the final cut in your list that you're looking at. So, let's talk about playstyle. How would you describe the playstyle of the Blood Angels? Yeah,
so the playstyle for me is one that is... I kind of summarize this like a take and hold. So what you're going to do with the Blood Angels is very fast-paced mobile units, extremely aggressive combat. They've got good board control because of their, durable units, Sanguinary Guard 2-up save, the Death Company with a Feel No Pain, Vanguard Vets with Storm Shields. It's fast, it hits hard, and the goal of it is to basically bully your opponent off their objectives. And that's how it scores the primary. So, like a kind of take and hold, aggressive combat list is where, if you're leaning into that as a Blood Angel player, you're going to do very, very well. And you'll see the word jump pack pop up a lot. And if you were to put the book into one of those word cloud generators, I think jump pack would be massive, and it would be right in the middle. You'd probably see combat, melee, jump pack. That's what it would be. Say no more, really. Yeah,
I think all the key words you kind of picked up when describing that play style, it's similar to Space Wolves in the fact that those abilities and styles suits 9th edition so well. Blood Angel players, you're looking in a good place, because your natural play style that the army wants to play plays the rule set well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, it really interacts around terrain really well as well, which the Space Wolves suffer with a little bit. So I think that's a slight advantage there. With the heavier terrain set that we're playing on in 9th edition, the Blood Angels are a fierce opponent, I think, yeah.
I'm not a bitter towel player by any stretch of the imagination. Moving swiftly on. So we got some new relics. Do you want to pick out a few of your favourites in there?
Yeah, I mean, these are just the four that I really like from the book. And obviously, there's still some great ones in the Space Marine Codex that you might consider. But for me, the reason why I like Relics, Warlord Traits, Powers, and this is something I'm going to go into a lot of detail on that masterclass, is when we look at something called a SWOT analysis, you analyze the strengths of the army's sort of units, playstyles, etc. So we're going to look at the strength of the book. We're then going to look at some of the weaknesses to that, or to the book. We're then going to be looking at some opportunities that we have, and we then have some threats that we need to consider when we're on the tabletop, and then also that gives us a result-based outcome. And I really like Relics, Powers, Warlord Traits, etc., because that gives us opportunities to fulfill gaps in the list, or to solve little problems for us. So, for example, Icon of the Angel solves the fact that you might fail a charge. So it gives you reroll charges within 6. So it has slightly changed from the previous book to this book. It used to be you could reroll any of the dice. Now you have to reroll both dice. But it did used to be before a 3-inch aura, and now it is a 6-inch aura. So it has slightly changed, but again, still very good to get reroll charges as an aura on a character.
I know, it's great. And I think it's a really good point that you raised there about that subtle change. It's just, I guess in the name of the Relic's exactly the same.
Yeah.
The core ability is exactly the same, but that little subtle change makes it. It's a slight nerf, let's be honest. Like, re-rolling any of the dice is incredible for re-rolling charges. So it's been toned down slightly. It's still a very good relic, and when you are reliant on making charges, it's in the auto-include or next to the auto-include selection. But it's important just to read that fine wording. Yes, it looks, it's on paper at first glance, it looks exactly the same, doesn't it? But actually, that little sort of change it's just changes use, and just be careful when you're looking at relics, warlord traits, whatever it is, stratagems that have carried over from a previous book. Just double check that wording, check that fine print to make sure that you've interpreted it correctly and it's not had a little tweak like that one.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And great sort of housekeeping there for all those types of things. So the next one is called Quake Bolts. And this is a really nice relic where you put it on a bolt gun, you make your shot, and if you hit, you get +1 to hit in combat against that unit. So any units that go into it, you get +1 to hit, which is excellent. So really makes units with things like power fists, thunder hammers that are naturally obviously -1 to hit. You can go back to hitting on your normal weapon skill.
And the change in how Chapter Master reroll works as well. Getting +1 to hit on a unit means that they'll be hitting on 2s, say with chainswords, for example, and they could be rerolling 1s for a captain, and you can send your unit with a Chapter Master rerolls into another unit that you haven't shot the Quaker bolts at. So then all of a sudden your 2s rerolling on one unit, and then you'll be 3s rerolling on another unit of the opponent's unit. So you can gain those efficiencies that way. It's not as easy and straightforward as it was back in 9th edition, which I think it was too easy. But then these little combos and things that you can stack up and use in the game, it's just a good way of retaining your efficiency.
Yeah, I know, I agree. And I think like we had with the Deathwatch, HQs for this army are it's very competitive, yeah, for which 3 HQs you take. I mean, obviously you can take more, but you don't want to be wasting CPs on other detachments, in my opinion. So I think you need to be hard on yourself. You take 3, and that one there, again, I'll cover in more detail on the masterclass why he is so clutch. So yeah, really like that relic. The next one is called the Wrath of Baal, and this is for your Sanguinary Ancient. I think it is a banner that only he can take. And basically, this gives you, within Aura again, this gives you +2 move to your jump pack units.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So it's for the Sanguinary Ancient model only. And the Sanguinary Ancient works very much like a sort of Chapter Ancient. He gives you the +1 to hit on a unit, and you can sort of shoot in death and all those things. So he's had a slight change, the Ancient. He used to give you reroll 1s to wound. He doesn't do that anymore, unfortunately. That was really nice because he was like your combat lieutenant. So his rules have changed ever so slightly. But yeah, basically, if you make a normal move, advance, or fallback, you add 2 to the movement characteristic until the end of that phase. So jump pack models now, your Sanguinary Guard and your Death Company, and all your characters, because it is friendly jump pack unit, not core unit, so it does affect characters as well.
Okay, good.
and also Death Company still retain the core keyword, so they're moving 14 inches. And this was a relic that I took to the LVO. It's why I took double Sanguinary Ancient at the time, and it was so that I could basically take both the Standard of Sacrifice, which unfortunately we've lost. It's no longer in this book.
Oh, I'm not in any crying about that relic. I'm not interested, Stephen.
I'm crying about it.
You know my thoughts on that.
That was a great relic. Huddle, the ancient banner, that got me out of many a tight spots anyway. So yeah, that's gone. But this +2 move, with a 14-inch move now on a smaller board edge, I mean, with a +1 to your advance as well. So even if you roll a 1 on your advance roll, you're moving 16 inches turn 1 into some terrain to get yourself ready for that. Realistically with the Blood Angels, you're looking for a turn 3 charge. You're not looking for turn 1. You're not really even looking for turn 2. You're looking for turn 3 charges, turn 4 charges, turn 5 charges. That's how the Blood Angel player wants to play. So getting that kind of +2 to your move just means that you can hit the terrain pieces you need. Maybe grab that objective, whatever it might be, to really make sure that you're, sealing the deal when it comes to those charges. Because if you can make up extra inches in your movement phase, you don't need to roll those when it comes to your charge roll. So actually it really helps in that aspect. So shall I move on to the last one?
Yeah, let's pick out your last one, yeah?
Yeah, so this one's called the Visage of Death. I think that's what it's called anyway. Basically, really Visage of Death, should I say. Each time an attack is made against a unit, subtract 1 from the attack hit roll, so basically -1 to hit. And that's melee attack, that is. And then also you gain the Visage of Death aura. So while enemy units are within 3 of this model, it loses the objective secured ability and any similar abilities that allow it to control an objective marker, regardless of the number of models within range of that objective marker. So basically it goes, no, you're not holding that anymore, which is so good.
That's a cracking relic. So yeah, I really like all of them, to be honest. Those 4 that you picked out there, absolute quality.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick 3, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think at the beginning of 8th edition, when we started getting relics and things like that, I think what you found in the competitive scene, every different type of list took the same relics, because there was just standout choices, basically, wasn't there? There was 1 or 2, maybe a third, that were heads and shoulders above any other relic in the book. They only saw the same relics. But now there's so many good relics. It's actually like an interesting choice to take, because these are just 4 that you'd want to take in every army, isn't it? That's not factoring in the fact that you'd want to take potentially some from the Space Marine Codex as well. You're spoiled for choice, which is good.
Yeah, it means that we're going to end up with diverse lists, not there's this, like, you look at some of the relics in the AdMech book and you're looking at them like, what's the point? Why do I want a crazy combat axe on a unit that doesn't want any, so GW are looking at this and they're obviously going, right, this solves that problem, this does this. So from a tactical point of view, it's all developing in the list stage, So, and many people go, Steve, I disagree. They're not the top 4 relics. It will be, extra armor save, or it will be the extra damage on a thunder. I don't know, or the thunder hammer that means you don't suffer minuses to hit or whatever. So they want to take their T for Terror, chainsword captain, or whatever it might be, and that's up to them, and that's up to you if you're listening. If you disagree with me, you do you.
And to be fair, those are good as well. The T for Terror captain, quality bit of kit if you want to plug in. Thunderhammer with no minuses because you lost your rerolls. Again, that's gained more value, but it's not kind of in keeping in the way that you like to run your characters, is it? It's a general philosophy, which I'm guessing you'll cover a bit on that academy lesson and on the
masterclass.
That's it.
And you need to have a philosophy, I believe, as a when you are thinking about your list. You need to justify every single choice you make, and again, that's something that we teach on the academy, and I drum into people every single week when I review their lists. I read their justification as to why they've taken things, rather than just, can you review this list, Steve? We make you justify your choices because we want to encourage critical thinking, and we really want people to feel comfortable, at the tabletop in that actually starts from the list writing stages. So anyway, let's move on. Should we cover the Warlord traits?
Yeah, let's move on. So what are your initial thoughts, or the ones that stood out to you?
So I wasn't blown away by the Warlord traits.
Okay.
Not like I was with relics. Now there is a warlord trait that means you can take an extra relic, but it doesn't include any of the relics I actually want to take. So otherwise I'll be like, right, boys, we're loading up on relics. Unfortunately, it didn't fit in there. But I think I've come up with a workaround I want to talk about with you, actually, at some point when we cover the stratagems. But anyway, so warlord traits, the first one is, your main Blood Angel one is your character fights first, which fight first now is good. But I think there are three better ones, and I'm going to cover what they are. So my top three are, number one, the Heroic Intervention 6 inches. That is brilliant.
Love it.
Having a spicy meatball character just pop in and go, cool, I'm coming in, 6 inches away, lovely.
Or shifting an aura as well, or any abilities that it may have. If that's on your 3-inch, the guy that turns off obsec within 3 inch, you could find yourself caught out there, couldn't you? Maybe a spoiler alert to one of your combos below. But I think anything that extends heroic intervention is so good in a particular 9th edition. Or
on my Judaser, maybe, if I want an opponent to fight last.
Yeah, nice, yeah.
Because now his aura's got smaller, now he's in. So yeah, I really like that. It's anytime you can gain free movement, I think you got to look at it and go, okay, where do I use this? Because it's going to be good. The movement phase is where you win the game in 40k. And I see the combat phase being an extension of a free move. So I like to use the combat phase as basically another movement phase. So the next one is called Heroic Bearing, and this gives you plus 3 inches to auras. And this is for like your captains, your lieutenants, etc. So it gives you an extra 3-inch aura. This is the one that Dante comes with. So his aura is 9 inches. Nice. So he's got chapter master rerolls at 9 inches and also reroll ones at 9 inches, which you do need now because you cannot string out as you once could with obviously coherency. So you cannot string out the Sanguinary Guard like I used to with 2 guys. I used to fight with 5 guys, trail 2 to 3 back because I needed to get within 6 inches of characters. Now I don't need to do that. I can pile them all in and get a 9-inch aura. Brilliant. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, cracking. I like that a lot, yeah. Yeah,
with one hand, GW have taken and then they've given, and I really like that. So, and it gives you a +1 leadership when you're taking big units like I am of Sanguinary Guard and Death Company. +1 leadership is helpful now, obviously, to make sure that we're not suffering undue casualties from the leadership phase. Anyway, so then the third one, you look at it and you go, do I need this? Do I need it? And I'm still torn. And I think 6 months with this army, and I'll tell you whether it's worth it or not. But this one could solve some problems. And again, it's a problem solver. It's an opportunity that the Blood Angels can take if you find in yourself where this is becoming a problem. And it is a 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. And I think that's just in the psychic phase. I'm just going to sort of double check. But it's, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, well, a friendly Blood Angel unit is within 6 of the Warlord. Each time a model in that unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll a d6. On a 5+, it's not lost. So it's actually against all...
it's an aura.
It's an aura, yep. So it's an aura for friendly units within 6. You know me, mate. If it's not an aura, I don't take it. Again, it's a 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. So that's not so that could be psychic powers, but that could also be Wrath of Mars. It could be the Necron shenanigan thing where they can do mortal wounds in the shooting phase. It could be mortal wounds from a Catan. Because mortal wounds is one way to and again, I'm going to cover this in more detail, so we're not going to go over it too much, but could be a warlord trait you want to look at. I must admit, when I read this originally, I was like, I just saw friendly within 6, 5+ and the wound's not lost, and I just read the top line, bottom line. I was like, yes, standard of sacrifice isn't even a standard, it's a warlord trait. Read it in more detail, and I was like, not as good, but still okay. So it's an option.
Yeah, cool.
And then you've obviously got the 3 other classics for me: Rites of War, Objective Secured, Psychic Mastery, +1 to cast and a Librarian, and also the old Selfless Healer on the Apothecary.
So those are all from the core Space Marine Codex, aren't they?
Yeah.
You've dipped your toe back into that just to help pick up some of those potentially not as strong as the relics, the Warlord Traits. So the nice way that they've built these books is that you've got the option to drop on to some solid Warlord Traits if none of those ones that we described for the Blood Angels book work for you. So happy days.
Yeah, and because of the Sanguinary Priest, has the apothecary keyword, so I'm assuming you can upgrade him to a master apothecary to get that sort of selfless healer warlord trait. So again, kind of that needs to be...
Yeah, I would like, and in particular, so I'm a Dark Angels player, I'd like them just to run a list of saying all these units, the Ravenwing Apothecary, the Sanguinary Priest, etc., can all be upgraded to Master Apothecary. Same with the chaplains and all that kind of stuff, and the company champions and all that thing, because you look at it and go, oh, that's pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure you're not 100% confident, are you? Like, I'm 99% sure I've got all the right keywords, but can I do it? I think the answer is yes. For me, I'll just like that, just a quick one-page document just to clear it all up, so I know exactly what I'm doing is correct and is intended of what's meant to happen.
Yeah, and the thing is here, it says, like, when you look at it, it doesn't say that you can't. It says a Blood Angels ancient character cannot be upgraded to a chapter ancient, because he's basically already one anyway. But when it says the characters, you've got Captain, Chaplain, Tech Marine, Librarian, Apothecary, Company Champion. Is that the keyword that you have, or the actual name of the data sheet that you have to have? Because if it's the name of the data sheet, then you can't do it, but if it's the name of the keyword, you can do it. So and then the chapter command keyword they gain is then Chief Apothecary for the extra 15 points. So anyway, I mean, you can it's difficult, isn't it? And I think for the moment, just agree it with your opponent. If you're not sure, email a TO and ask prior to going to an event if it's something that you're thinking of doing. It's the right thing to do, but whether you can or can't, there's no great shakes, I don't think. But that's what I want to know is in that there's a little sort of on page 98 of the Space Marine Codex, there's that little thing which is got the points and everything like that. Is that keyword or just name, because it's not clear? But anyway, so that's one thing. Obviously, you can just take a librarian with a jump pack or whoever, and can I take a librarian dreadnought and give him master? Can I make him a special one? Who knows? But some different things there. So yeah, 6 good warlord traits I think to pick from. Cool.
So yeah, let's move on. Let's get psychic powers. So the Blood Angels got their own discipline.
Sorry, what was that?
It's magic time.
It's magic time. Yeah, guys, we got a new soundboard. I've got to test it out. Yeah, psychic powers.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to be controversial.
Are they better than they were before? Did they have a psychic discipline before?
Yeah. So they had...
Oh, yeah, of course they did. Yes, of course they did. Sorry, I had a brain fart then.
No worries, mate. I'll let you off. So I'm going to be controversial here, and I've only picked 2 that I like.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you know me, mate. I like my powers, but yeah, the Sanguinary Discipline is okay. But so you got Quicken in there, which is basically you add D3 attacks to your Psyker. And a lot of people love Mephisto, and a lot of people love a Libby Dread, right?
Yeah.
For me, I don't. So I don't like buffs that only affect the character. I like buffs that affect units. So I only like the Shield of Sanguinius, which is a 5+ invulnerable save. It's got a casting value of 6 and an 18-inch range on it, which I really like. Because then I can my Death Company, we'll talk about those, but a little cheeky combo later on. They can push. Yeah. He can push forward, and then you can go, cool, guys, have a 5+ invulnerable save on me, and then go and crack on and do your thing. So I enjoy that a lot. I don't need to be hugging my librarian to get that ability. It's just inbuilt, on the unit as it flies away from the psychic phase. And then we've also got Unleash Rage, which used to be a...
additional attack, wasn't it?
Used to be an additional attack. Now it's exploding 6s.
So it's been toned down a little bit, but I'm sure the mathematicians out there could probably work it out that it feels like you probably end up at roughly the same place. You're still having a bucket load of a dice, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, your Death Company, let's just look at them. So you've got 2 base, you get +1 for a chainsword, so that's 3 attacks. You get +1 for Black Rage, which is 4 attacks. And then you get another attack, which is 5 for having Shock Assault. So now that's 5 attacks. And then if you're in turn 3, that's an additional attack, so that's 6 attacks. So if you roll 6 dice, you should roll a 6, right?
Yep.
So that gives you
your additional attack.
That gives you your additional attack, yeah. But then there's a slight difference because you don't actually have to roll that attack; it just hits.
Yes. Yeah.
And let me just double check. You don't actually have to re-roll it because that's important. Whether it's you just get it or you re-roll it.
I I would hazard a guess that it would be an automatic hit, because I think that the general theme I think they're trying to do is cut out additional dice rolls where possible.
You are correct, yeah. So I think when you get to turn 3, you're probably going to gain more attacks than just a +1 attack. But in the earlier turns, it probably works out mathematically slightly less. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but I'm just going off some basics there.
Yeah.
So it's
in conclusion, if you have 10 Death Company charging on turn 3, you need to get your bucket out, fill it with dice, and then roll it across the table. And that would probably be about right.
Yeah, or you just go, you're going to make me roll this. Yeah.
My Talfire Warriors will stand up to this. I have no problem.
My 5-man unit, yep.
We'll make you roll it on your clock.
Yeah. I'm gonna clock you out, son. Get rolling. Oh, but I've only got 10. Unlucky, son. Absolutely. So they're my 2 faves. Yeah, the Quicken's still in there. You got the old Blood Lance and Wings of Sanguinius in there. You can if manifested. Go on.
I like the Wings quickening combo on a Librarian Dreadnought. I think it's a nice bit of kit to have in the locker. If that's your playstyle, I think it very much can have a place in the Blood Angels list still, if that suits your playstyle.
Yeah, so if manifested, this Psyker can make a normal move or fallback as if it were your movement phase. In addition, until the end of that phase, this Psyker has a move characteristic of 12 and can fly. So, I mean, you can have a flying Librarian Dreadnought, but for me, it's just not making that. It's just not making the top 2, you know?
And flying the Dreadnoughts is the reason I turned up tonight.
That's the title of the show, yeah.
Yeah.
With Duty Eternal built in, thank you very much. 3 off.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point, actually. Tasty. That's even better. Cool. I'm just my little cogs in my brain were turning then. I like that. So let's move on before I get onto a retail shop and start ordering Blood Angels. Litanies.
Maybe your dreams finally come true of your Dreadnought army. You go, right.
Dreadnought army, yeah.
Triple Librarian Dreadnought, yeah, take them.
A lot of consideration has gone into can the Dreadnought army work now, but I think that's a topic for another day, I think.
Yeah, Rights of War Warlord Trait, yeah, all obsec. I've got all obsec Dreadnoughts, right. 3 Death Company Dreadnoughts, yeah, they're in. 3 Feroso Dreadnoughts, yeah, they're in. Go for it. Do it.
Looks like it's some Ironclad Dreadnoughts in there as well, I'll be happy.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. So, I'll help you paint it. You buy it, we're on it, all right?
Your painting desk is full of my models already. I think you need to choppy chop rather than painting up these lovely Blood Angels. Right, now moving on to Litanies before you get a chance to reply to that.
Yeah, so rerolls, obviously, reroll misses. What's not to like about that? Obviously,
right.
But
that's reroll misses in combat, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry, I should have specified that.
In an aura.
Just your regular stock one that a chaplain gets, because the Blood Angels are very notorious for their chaplains. They've got 2, basically special ones. You've got Ashtaroth, who is an absolute beast, who's just got better. He had a once per game ability called Massive Doom. Now it's just a litany, so you can do it every turn. So you basically, once it goes off, you roll a dice. On a 1, I think one of the models is slain from the unit, or what you can do is just, use the stratagem to auto-pass it. And basically roll a dice. So you can auto-pass the litany, but then obviously you'd still need to roll the dice to see if a model was slain. So on a 1, a model slain, I believe, or it is a mortal wound, one or the other. On a 2 to a 5, you get +1 to hit on that unit. And then on a 6, you get +1 to hit. And also, you get a 4+ invulnerable save, I believe. I'm going to check right now. So give me 2 seconds. Massive Doom, 4+ invulnerable save as well, yeah. And it is, one model in that unit is destroyed if you rolled a 1. So, I mean,
cool. That
was brilliant. Again, having Death Company, if you do roll that 6 with a 4+ invulnerable save, knocking about, they're pretty good. So, and then you've got obviously Lamartes as well. But you've obviously got the other +2 to charge. But really, when I look at this, I don't actually have any chaplains in my list. None of them made the cut. Because like I said, they're so fierce for that top spot. In Ashtaroth was an auto include for me, and now it's not, because I feel like with so many +1s to hit now, I don't need the reroll misses, because as you pointed out, a captain or Dante with reroll 1s and reroll misses is enough, especially with Quake Bolts. And +2 charge. I mean, I'm already getting a +1 anyway, so do I even need the extra +1, especially if I take the relic for the +2 move?
Yeah, you might have enough movement in the locker already.
So I don't need one. So no, and I'm a guy that used to run Lamartes and Ashtaroth, and now I've got no chaplains.
It's controversial.
It is controversial, mate, yeah.
All right, cool. So we've covered all the character buffing abilities there. So let's get on to some stratagems. Obviously, quite a wide plethora of stratagems are in this book. Lots you'd recognise from the previous edition that have made the transition across into the new codex, and I think some of the great stratagems that are in the 8th edition book have made it to keep that to keep their uniqueness and flavour, which I'm quite happy to see.
Yeah, they've been toned down a bit, the stratagems, I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think there's 17 new stratagems, but some of them you already know, like give a warlord another warlord trait and stuff like that. Give a sergeant a relic. So those warlord traits that you've seen in other books are still in this book. So I'm not going to cover those. I'm going to cover the most specific stratagems solely for the Blood Angels, okay? So the first one I want to talk about is Descent of Angels. This has had a change. Descent of Angels used to be, I mean, I'm never good with names, but I think Descent of Angels used to be you get a 3D 6-inch charge roll.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's no longer what it is anymore, unfortunately, but it's changed. It's 1 CP, and when that unit comes down from reserve, you get +1 to hit on the turn it arrives, and that's in the shooting phase and in combat. And also you ignore, or you can ignore, is the prudent word there, you can ignore any modifiers to your charge roll. So obviously you don't have to ignore your +1 to charge, but if there was, I don't know, you were charging a grav tank and they decided to use the stratagem for -2, you can ignore the -2, get your +1, because you can choose to ignore them. So you would be just on your 8-inch charge, or if you had a chaplain nearby, it'd be a 7 if you got the +2 litany off. So I think it's nice. I think it's good. And for 1 CP, what's not to like about that one? Yeah.
No, I think it's great. I think the 3d6 charge gave you such a reliable charge from Deep Strike that there's almost like there's almost zero risk in doing it, which is not a good place for the game design, that you can do a 3d6 charge from Deep Strike and jump up and jump back down, all that kind of tricks you could do. So I'm glad to see that 3d6 go. It's still a reliable charge from combat, and they've obviously changed it, so it gives you other buffs elsewhere. So I think that's a positive change for the game, really, that one.
Yeah, and we might see that with bloodletters and all sorts that have their similar sort of ability.
Yeah.
So the next one is called Refusal To Die. You used to have it in Death Company before, and it's a 5+ feel no pain. So they get their 6+, so their 6+ goes to a 5+. Now, this wasn't great before because obviously there's so much that is damage 2 out in the game, and you'd had to roll a double 5 in order to, obviously, for a model to survive. But now, with 2 wounds, having a 5+ feel no pain is incredible. Now, they have changed it slightly. It is 1 CP if you've got 5 models, and if you're over 5, it's 2 CPs. So you're going to have to think very, you're going to have to think carefully when you use it, but I think it's a nice one.
Yeah, I really like that one.
Yep. You've got the Angels Sacrifice, and I really like this one. I think it's an epic deed stratagem in Dante. I keep banging on about him, but he can do an epic deed stratagem for free. And basically, Angel Sacrifice means that everybody that is in combat with that character who can and is eligible to fight must put their attacks on him.
Nice.
So if you've got that unit of Sanguinary Guard you need to protect, or that unit of Incursors that are on an objective, or whatever, or maybe they're in combat with, your Librarian or your Sanguinary Priest that you don't want to die because he's your Warlord and they took the Warlord killing one or something. I don't know, but it's nice to have in your pocket, and I think that is a stratagem which I think could be utilised. And when you've got Dante with a 2+, 4+, and he's got, loads of wounds, and he's an inbuilt -1 to hit, maybe that's enough just to go, cool, well, he shrugs off the hits, and I'm now going to hit you back.
Like immediate application for that is all boys, with no AP is a good example. Yeah, you can throw your attacks at Dante, then -1 to hit, you got no re-rolls, and then you're bouncing off a 2-up armor save. It's very situational, but it could become really clutch when you need it.
And also, it will mean that the models that are within engagement range, depending on where you've positioned them, this is where the skill of the player comes in. you could draw those attacks away. And if you place them in such a place, which means you could even limit the amount of attacks coming in anyway. So, it's going to be interesting, I think, that one.
Cool. What's your next one?
Now, this next one was the one I wanted to talk to you about. So basically, it's where you can give a sergeant a relic.
Yep.
Now, does that mean you can take an additional relic? So you get your free relic. You can spend the other stratagem from the Space Marine book to take 2 additional relics, right?
Yeah.
Because you can take that twice in a strike force. Now, does this mean you can unlock a 4th stratagem if you take this one?
A 4th relic?
A 4th stratagem. A 4th relic with the stratagem.
It's a different stratagem, isn't it?
It's a different stratagem, yeah.
Yeah, because you get your one, then there's the stratagem, which says to take additional relics, but it says you can only use this twice because of strike force size games, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a different stratagem. So I don't see any issues with that.
Yeah, okay, cool. So in that case...
Because there's no overall restriction to the number of relics that you can take in a force.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, so I really like this one because now I don't need to choose over... Because Quake Bulks is one of those little... one of the options. So, now I can take all 4 relics.
Perfect.
Now I don't even need to choose. They're just in, all of them. Yeah, so, I like that a lot. Because I can just put that on one of my Incursor boys and he can just go, pow, that, cool, +1 hit, lads, yeah, cheers, thank you. Really, really nice. Or I could potentially put it on, it has to be a bolt weapon, but, I mean, I'll find something. Anyway, so, I like it. So, next up, we've got the Red Rampage. At first, I thought, this is great, extra AP in turn 3 for 1 CP every time you roll a 6. But I was like, when am I ever going to need to be -5? Because if you're a Blood Angel player and you're taking Sanguinary Guard, the sword is the way forward. And a lot of people have said to me, no, Steve, axes are better. But trust me, swords are the way forward. So, again, I'll cover that. Go on.
Is that the stratagem that goes across your whole army? So if you're running like an Assault Intercessor spam, because you'll be an Assault Doctrine, you'd be AP2, wouldn't you, stock?
You would.
And then your 6s to wound would become AP3.
Yeah.
For 1 CP, if you had a load of Assault Intercessors, that's decent, So it just depends on your build, doesn't it? But if you're carrying, as you said, with your Sanguinary Guard, a load of power swords, which are going to be AP4 and Assault Doctrine anyway, you don't need it. But you could definitely, if you did fancy taking chainsaw spam basically across Assault Intercessors or Death Company or whatever, it's pretty good bang for your buck on that 1 CP.
Yeah, no, I agree. For 1 CP, if you need to lay the hammer blow, no pun intended, you're gonna be doing it. Yeah. So.
But again, like with your Thunderhammers, they lost a point of AP. Getting them up to AP4 and the wound roll was 6 in turn 3 might be decent. I think it's good. It as you say, it depends on what your army build is and if you actually need additional AP on top of the Assault Doctrine at that point anyway. But no, I like it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. So next up, we've got, this is my favourite one.
I know it's your favourite one.
Use this one so many times and it is so good. And there is a slight nerf to it. It was weird because in the index, it came out as 3 CPs, but actually was all units. And now it's just Sanguinary Guard can use this one. They can heroically intervene as if they were a character 6 inches for 1 CP. And it is Sanguinary Guard only.
Bargain.
Doesn't work with Vanguard Vets. It doesn't work with Death Company. Yeah. But this is another reason why you have to be taking Sanguinary Guard for me. So good. What a great stratagem that is. And when you want to kill people off objectives, when you want that free extra movement... I'm now starting to be a Space Wolf, so I think super good. So, cracking. And I know how much you love that one as well, mate.
Oh, at least you're only doing Sanguinary Guard now, so I can at least still forget about it just as much then.
Yeah, so the next one is Fallen Fury. It's back. It's for the Death Company, and this is a pre-game move. It's 1 or 2 CPs. It used to be a flat 2, but if you're only taking a little small man unit, it is only 1 CP now, but obviously if you're taking more than 5, it is 2, which if you're taking Death Company, that's the way forward in my opinion. And basically... you can select 1 Death Company unit, as I said, and you can move up to 12 as if it was your movement phase, but must end that move more than 9 inches away from enemy models. So that's new. I think you could go wherever you wanted before. and you could actually move.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a nerf.
Yeah, and also I cannot. So before I could advance. So before I could move 12, and if I had the obviously I'd get my advance +1, so I'd make my advance roll. And if I rolled a 6, I'd be moving 19 inches pre-game. So now it is only 12.
Yeah, but I think you're right because infiltrating units stop that off now.
Yeah.
Which is I think is the identical wording to the Raven Guard equivalent, actually.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, you can do it. You can also do it with your Dreadnought, mate.
Oh, I will. Don't you worry about that. I'm a Fall. Death Company Dreadnought. Can I fall on Fury?
Yeah.
Is it just Death Company unit?
Straight in my basket.
I've just spent dropping 6 EP before the game to move a set of Dreadnoughts up 6 inches. Seems worth it to me.
I mean, it doesn't say that you can only use it once, so it's 2 CPs, but go for it, mate. Yeah.
Well, I'll have a little bit of think about that one.
Yeah. Next week on the show, right. Jack talks you through his his Dreadnought list. That's how many listens we're going to be getting, I tell you. Anyway, so let's turn that off. Thank you, Crickets.
Yeah, all right. Okay, now let's move on.
Right, okay.
Upon Wings of Fire. It's still there.
Upon Wings of Fire. Again, slight nerf. You cannot come down in the same turn in which you did it.
Oh, really? Ooh. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, so use any movement phase, select the Blood Angel core unit with a jump pack and remove from the battlefield. In your reinforcements of your next movement phase, you can set up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from enemy models. So now it does mean, a little clutch moment here, if you're in combat, you can just Wings Upon Fire out. So that's not a fallback move, so you could Upon Wings of Fire your Death Company if you were in combat and you didn't want to be there. I don't know if that situation ever appears, but which it might. Like you might get a unit of guardsmen tag into you, and you didn't have enough attacks to kill them. I don't know, but anyway.
But it used to be 2 CP, didn't it, as well?
Yeah, it's now 1. Yeah.
So the ability's got slightly worse, but then the CP cost has also come down. So that's fair enough. It's still a useful ability, especially if you're looking at engaging all fronts, or you can't get to the back of someone, or they've left. Your opponent's going to leave a back pocket for you to deep strike into later. It's still a very useful tool.
Yeah, and then absolutely. And then the last one is called Chalice Overflowing, because that's exactly what you want from your chalice, is obviously for it to be overflowing. And your priest can put use a stratagem in your command phase, select 1 priest. That model can use the Blood Chalice ability 1 more time that phase. And basically the Sanguinary Priest, who I told you about earlier, who's like basically our apothecary, his ability, so he also gives you a 6+ Feel No Pain aura within 3 of him.
What? Oh, because he's an apothecary, yeah.
Yeah, badass. He can obviously restore people with D3 wounds, etc. In your command phase, select 1 friendly Blood Angel core or Blood Angel character unit, excluding vehicle units. Sorry, mate, no Dreadnoughts for you. Within 6 of the model.
Dreadnought's core?
Yeah, but it says excluding vehicle units.
Oh, I'm not interested. Stop talking. Let's move on.
Yeah. So within 6 until the start of your next command phase, if the Tactical Doctrine or Devastator Doctrine is active for your army, then each time a model in that unit makes an attack, the Assault Doctrine is considered to be active for that attack instead. So again, does that mean that Savage Echoes also applies or not?
Yeah, there's been discussion on this kind of topic, isn't there? It's not particularly clear if you get the full benefits of being in Doctrine, or is it just meant to be the additional AP? I think that just needs a bit of clarification. But it's good to see that you got another reason to take Apothecary, because I think he was struggling to get into a Space Marine list, to be honest. So I'm glad he's got that little boost to get him into the list.
I mean, he is a HQ for me though, and he does. But he can take a jump pack. Of course he can. Yeah, and that's what you're definitely taking. Yeah. So because he's got to keep up with the army, obviously. So he's in the list. He's an auto-include for me. So having some overflowing chalice is nice. So that pretty much wraps up the stratagems. Now, the other thing that obviously the Blood Angel get is the additional, what they call secondary picks. And obviously the faction-specific secondaries, so they can access the Adeptus Astartes one and also the Blood Angels one. At first glance, I wasn't really blown away by them, and we're not going to cover them today because actually I want to play test with them first before I give you my, are they good, are they not opinion. Because I found recently it's been a bit of a, I don't know, but there's been a lot of chat about tournaments not using the faction-specific secondaries recently.
Okay.
And it was my standpoint anyway that I think we need to trust Games Workshop and just let them do what they want to do, as I feel like the game is moving forward in such a way that they're clearly intended to be played for match play. And I believe, in my opinion, we should be using them. Now, I appreciate not all armies have... This is a topic in itself. We could probably debate it until, you could say, but not all codexes are out yet and not everybody has a secondary option, to pick from. But, I mean, some codexes are well old anyway and they've got old units. So it's just one of those things. At what point do you say I'll bring them in? But so I want to save all the discussions around secondaries, faction specific or not, until a later show, and we can discuss that in more detail. But I think, for now, I'll review them at a later stage. Some of them look okay, but again, there's some that are so situational that are going to be they might be good in a narrative game because they are like quite, I sort of did my epic thing I had to do, but you're probably not taking it in a competitive match anyway because it's not reliable enough. So anyway, what's next?
So I'm not sure if you want to cover this topic or the sort of units your Blood Angels want to include and why. I think that's part of the masterclass that I believe you wanted to cover that off in a bit more detail. So have you got any list ideas to go with this, to just kind of put some of this stuff that we just discussed tonight into a bit of context for the listeners?
Yeah, so I think when you come to, let's go over some of the main aspects. In terms of just generic advice for lists, you want to be taking things that heavily lean into combat. So we need to look at the HQs, and again, the masterclass, I'll go over the strengths and weaknesses of the army, and from that point you can hopefully analyze your core list and then add in the HQs you feel like are going to support your choice the most. So whether that's a captain, whether that's a lieutenant, chaplain, librarian, etc., I'm going to go over all of that in the masterclass. But your 3 HQ choices, whether you go chaplain or whatever, totally up to you, but make sure they're fitting for the rest of your army. So when we look at the troops, you can go heavy on the assault intercessors, but the problem is with them, they're not really going to benefit too much from the Blood Angels' ability to get extra inches on jump packs in some of the goodness there. They can't access some of the stratagems because they don't have a jump pack. So again, are the assault intercessors a good option for the Blood Angels? Yes, they can be, but are they the best? Probably not. Do you want to be going for shooting ones? Again, probably not. So I really like incursors, and I really like infiltrators. Their job role for me is to gain the middle ground and to protect the characters because they're already forward, so they've already made their movements up pre-game, and I can put them in a position which means I can just tuck my characters in behind them to make sure that I'm getting the lookout sir while they then buff the rest of the combat units that then go forward. So I really like incursors and I really like infiltrators because infiltrators can basically stop your opponent from getting anywhere near you. So if there's a couple of pockets that you need to be deep striking into, it can stop your opponent from deep striking within you to then stop you deep striking into them. So it's a bit of a deep strike game. So yeah, for me, infiltrators and cursors, either way, is a pretty good option. I think I probably wouldn't look at some of the other options. I just don't think they're as competitive personally. So then when we get into the elite section, now you can go heavy Sanguinary Guard, which I've spoke about before, why they're brilliant, and they've actually got even better anyway in this book. And same with the Death Company. Both are a very good choice. You can go swords on the Sanguinary Guard, or you could go power fists. Both are good options. Personally, I think the swords are a good way. And I like repetition, so I like a unit to have exactly the same loadout. It means dice rolling much faster. It means that you get very used to the repetitive nature of understanding what that that unit can reliably do on a consistent basis. So when you're using the same unit over and over again, you get an idea for how many swords do what, and that's really useful as a tactician. Yeah, you've got Sanguinary Guard you could go with, you could go Death Company, you go a bit of a mix of the two. You could go Vanguard Vets. Vanguard Vets with a Storm Shield and a Lightning Claw is a great combo, or Storm Shield and a Power Fist is another good option, especially with Quake Bolts, +1 to hit, rerolls from Dante or Chapter Master, whatever. That's good. The Sanguinary Guard get an additional +1 to hit as well, so all of a sudden their Power Fists could be back hitting on 2s again, because you could be -1 with 2+2 or whatever, so you're back hitting on 2s with Power Fists. So you could go either way. Jump pack Vanguard Vets, jump pack Death Company, jump pack Sanguinary Guard. Any way is a good way. And then when your fast attack opens up, Outriders are good for Blood Angels. I mean, they get a ridiculous amount of attacks anyway, and you're throwing in even more with obviously the Savage Echoes when they get to turn 3. So yeah, Outriders are good. You could also go heavy on, or just some little units of Assault Marines. They're also a good little option now, and a lot of people haven't even looked at the Assault Marines. So yeah, it's just got so many options you could play with this. So in terms of the masterclass, we're going to be covering a lot more of this in detail in terms of that SWOT analysis of looking at the strengths and weaknesses and the combinations. And then also what we're going to be doing on the academy is looking at like what secondaries you should be taking, the army actually in action, some top character combinations, and obviously I go into a lot more detail about units, how to deploy it, and also most importantly how to beat the Blood Angels as well. And then I'll also give you your weekly feedback. And if you do want to join the academy, we've got a 7-day trial at the moment for $2.99 for that trial period. And you can access that on our blog page, which is www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/S2EP15. So that's everything to look forward to for the masterclass in the academy. So what's next, Jack?
The last thing we want to cover was a couple of questions from the listeners, wasn't it? So I've just started my Blood Angels army a few weeks ago. Besides Vanguard Vets, Sanguinary Guard, Death Company, and Incursors, what are some of the units that have synergies?
I think I've kind of answered that one previously.
Yes.
Infiltrators you could look at. And there's another unit I want to talk about, which is actually the next question. So like I said, if you could go Assault Marines. I really like the Assault Marines, so they could be an option. Now they get the extra attack, the extra wound, and also they get the chainsword, the extra buffs that Astartes chainswords get for a really cheap, fast unit that can just run in. And if you've got a Warlord trait with OBSEC nearby, who doesn't want a fast attack options that are quite cheap and cheerful? So I think they could be a good option as well.
Yeah, and just to say, these questions that we picked up have come through our Discord, which you've just upgraded, haven't you, Steve?
Yep, so we've just had a massive rehaul on the Discord, and we're actually going to open up the Vanguard Tactics Discord to you guys as a bit of a thank you for joining in each week, listening, and we can chat about things. So anything me and Jack get wrong, we can discuss it in there. You can post your questions, and all links to join our Discord are going to be on that blog page as well. Like I said, it's completely for free, and we just want to build a community of like-minded people. So if you want to join our community, then as long as you behave yourselves, we'll let you in.
Yeah, and we'll just touch on this last question here, because this is something I texted you, I think, yesterday, that popped into my brain, and I'm clearly on the same wavelength as one of the guys in the Discord channel. So, Inceptors, they look decent with Wings of Fire. What do you think about bringing those in the Blood Angels list, even though they are not close combat-based unit?
Yeah, now this is a question that obviously I've normally said if you're shooting a gun in a Blood Angel army, you're playing it wrong. So I'm going to eat my words. And I'm going to say evidence-based player, as a coach, I'm an evidence-based coach where I look at the evidence, and looking at the evidence, Inceptors with Upon Wings of Fire, and also Dante rerolls Plasma Inceptors coming in from reserve. They've still got a jump pack. They're still a Space Marine. They still get a boatload of attacks with a 6+ Feel No Pain, +1 to hit, plasma guns. I mean, what's not to like about that? And I think that it can plug a little gap that maybe the Blood Angels have potentially struggled with in the past. So
very good pick, I think.
I've just painted 6 myself. So, and again, you can combine that with some other stratagems I'll talk about when we go over my list in more detail over on the masterclass. But there are other options that you could look at. Suppressors could be good from their changes now. Whirlwinds could have some play. But again, all about focusing on how do we look at the army and units with opportunities to potentially get the army out of some of its weak links. So when you are going to a tournament, you can take a really well-rounded list. And obviously that's something that we really want to help you with, develop further if you choose to join us on the Academy. But anyway, so that's if you want to have your questions answered, you can join the Discord. We'll pick the best ones every week. And remember, guys, if you do like the podcast, please give us a review over on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening. We really appreciate it. It helps us grow as a channel and reach more people. So again, Jack, thank you so much for the show.
No, thanks again. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you for you guys who are listening. And remember, Masterclass Sunday, the 6th of December at 2 p.m. All the details are over on that blog page, which you can find on our website, www.Vanguard Tactics. And remember, there's that stream game where you can see the Blood Angels in action. And let's hope I win so I can actually show you what they do. But anyway, once again, guys, thanks so much. And we'll see you next week on the Competitive 40k podcast. Take care.